Britain's finances are in trouble. The Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, just laid it all out in blunt terms. If we carry on like this, UK government debt could hit 270% of GDP by 2070. That's up from under 100% today. Why? Because of the rising state pension costs, an ageing population, and the huge price tag for dealing with the climate crisis. Richard Hughes, who runs the OBR, didn't sugarcoat it. He said the UK public finances are in an unsustainable position in the long run. The UK cannot afford the array of promises that it's made to the public. The UK's current economic situation extends beyond long-term concerns. It presents an immediate and urgent warning sign. Among 36 major advanced economies, the UK now ranks with the 6th highest debt, the 5th highest budget deficit, and alarmingly, the 3rd highest borrowing costs. These aren't abstract statistics, they're red flags waving right in front of us. High levels of debt and persistent deficits leave the UK dangerously exposed to shifts in market sentiment. When confidence falters, the cost of borrowing rises, and that doesn't just affect government spreadsheets. It hits households directly. Mortgage rates go up, car loan payments climb, and credit becomes more expensive for businesses and families alike. Elevated borrowing costs mean more taxpayer money is spent servicing debt, leaving less for vital public services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. It's a downward spiral that stifles growth and strains the economy. If the markets begin to panic, if they sense the UK can't control its debt or spending, the consequences could be swift and brutal. We've seen this before. In 2022, Liz Truss's mini-budget proposal led to a sudden collapse in market confidence, sending bond yields soaring, mortgage offers being withdrawn overnight, and the pound plummeting to record lows. That chain reaction exposed just how fragile the UK's financial system had become. This isn't just a theoretical risk, it's a real immediate danger, and if left unaddressed, it could spiral into a full-blown economic crisis. To understand why this matters, look back at what happened in 2022. Liz Truss's government introduced a mini-budget with massive tax cuts and no plan to pay for them. The bond markets freaked out. Yields on UK government debt soared, pension funds nearly collapsed. The Bank of England had to step in to stop a total meltdown. It took just a few days for the markets to lose confidence and for Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng to lose their jobs. That's the power of bond markets. When confidence cracks, they don't hesitate to react. But it's important to understand something. Bond markets are not inherently opposed to debt. In fact, every major advanced economy operates with significant public debt, including the US, Japan, France, and Germany. Debt in itself isn't the problem. What spooks the markets is debt without discipline. Investors want to see a clear, credible plan for managing public finances. They're looking for signals that a government understands how to balance ambition with economic realism. If they detect confusion, unrealistic assumptions, or what some call fantasy economics, they act, and fast. And right now, those same bond markets are keeping a close eye on Rachel Reeves and the new Labour government. Reeves has only just stepped into the role of Chancellor, but expectations are immense. Labour won a landslide. Politically, she has room to move. On paper, it should be a dream scenario, a large majority and a mandate for reform. But despite this commanding position, Labour has already been forced into a series of U-turns, most notably abandoning plans to review or limit winter fuel payments for pensioners and shelving proposed reforms to personal independence payments. Both measures were originally presented as ways to rein in public spending, yet under political and public pressure, the government reversed course. This has raised questions about whether, even with a strong majority, Labour can follow through on difficult fiscal choices. In addition to these U-turns, Rachel Reeves has already ruled out raising the main taxes, income tax, national insurance, and VAT. That severely limits her options. Meanwhile, economic growth remains sluggish, and the list of spending demands continues to grow, from soaring energy bills to rising welfare costs to pressure for higher public sector wages. So, investors are asking, if taxes aren't going up and public spending isn't going down, where's the money going to come from? That's why people are nervous about a potential Liz Truss 2.0. Even journalists like Andrew Marr are speaking out. On the New Statesman podcast, he said, "I am very worried. I think we're remarkably close to some kind of meltdown. I hate saying that, but I just think it's true."
Andrew, how worried are you about a
Very.
Truss 2.0?
I am very worried. I think we are remarkably close to some kind of meltdown. I hate saying that, but I just think it's true.
And his sentiment is echoed by many other journalists and analysts from across the political spectrum, both on the left and the right. The OBR is also warning that external factors could add even more pressure. For example, if average US tariffs on global trade hit 20%, that could knock 1% off UK GDP. That would be enough to wipe out Reeves's already limited fiscal headroom. And that headroom is tiny. Reeves has left herself just £9.9 billion of wiggle room under her own fiscal rules. That's not much, especially when you consider how unpredictable the economy is. Some people think that as long as Reeves sticks to her rules, everything will be fine, but the OBR isn't so sure. They point out that since 2010, the UK has had 9 different sets of fiscal rules, 8 of them focused on getting debt to fall. Yet, despite that, debt has actually risen by 24% of GDP in the last 15 years and by 60% over the last 20 years. Reeves's rules are more flexible than previous ones. They allow more borrowing for investment, but according to Richard Hughes, they're among the loosest we've ever had. That flexibility comes at a cost. Less than £10 billion of space is not a lot in a world full of economic shocks. A minor shift in assumptions, say a small drop in productivity, could erase it entirely. The OBR says a 0.1% dip in productivity growth would be enough to wipe it out. And then there's the triple lock on state pensions. It guarantees that pensions rise in line with the highest at inflation, earnings, or 2.5%. That's great for pensioners, but expensive for the government. Pension spending has gone from 2% of GDP in the mid-1900s to 5% now. If the triple lock stays in place, it could hit 7% by 2070. That's a huge chunk of public money going to one area, and it limits the government's ability to fund anything else. There's another problem. Fewer pension funds are buying government bonds. Traditional defined benefit pensions used to be a big source of demand for UK gilts, but those schemes are fading. And as a result, Britain's becoming more dependent on foreign investors to fund its borrowing. And those investors are quicker to pull back if they don't like what they see. So, Reeves is stuck. She can't cut spending without triggering a political backlash. She's ruled out all the main options for raising taxes, and that leaves her relying almost entirely on economic growth to fix the problem. But growth is slowing, and all the while, debt is rising, and the bond markets are watching closely. Some economists say she should look at wealth taxes or close tax loopholes. Others warn that could hurt investment or scare off business. Either way, she needs to find a solution, and fast. Because the risks are real. The OBR has laid them out in plain English. Weak growth, rising pensions, an ageing society, climate costs, shifting bond markets, tiny headroom. Any one of these things could trigger another crisis. Together, they paint a picture of a country on the edge. So, what needs to happen? If Reeves wants to avoid a repeat of 2022, she needs to be bold and honest. That means telling the public the truth about what's affordable and what's not. It means making tough choices that might upset her own party. Credibility is everything. If the markets believe she has a grip on things, they'll give her space. But if they see mixed messages, unrealistic promises, or fuzzy maths, they won't wait around. We've seen what happens when the markets lose faith. She doesn't need to balance the books overnight, but she does need a clear plan, one that makes sense to voters and to bond markets. Because if she doesn't set the agenda, the markets will, just like they did in 2022.